righty, everybody. This is Mike DiGioia from DAS Trader. I'm the Director of Institutional Sales here at DAS, and I've been a trader for over 22 years. And I'm teaching you how to configure your DAS Trader platform for trading so that you can get the most out of it as a trading platform and get the most out of it as a technical analyst looking at your charts. So the last time, the last session I did Advanced Chart Configuration Volume 1, and I showed us how to configure our CCI and MACD. I'm going to continue right along and continue to show us how to configure our charts. Now, what I was just doing there was moving my daily chart into an area that's conducive for the daily right here at the end. If I ever want to snap it up and get a better view, I can just click on the maximize. I want to snap it back down, it snaps right back into that bottom quarter. Usually we keep our market montage next to our time as sales and then obviously our smallest time frame. So usually the smallest time frame that we'll look at for day trading would be our 5-minute chart. Now some people would say that these words are the moving average descriptions are a little distracting. We're gonna deal with some of those issues today. But first, let's go to our daily chart, and we're going to talk about what we do. We're going to add a couple of other strategies and indicators, and I'm just going to add a new chart section. I'm going to add one before, and I'm going to add one after. So chart area, one before, one after. I'm also going to get rid of the bottom chart area. Actually, I'm just going to get rid of the data. So I'm going to get rid of the data config. Actually, cancel that. I'm going to get right here. I'm going to get rid of study config, and I'm going to get rid of the volume study. Okay, hit commit. Now it's empty. What I'm going to add here is I'm going to add study config. I already pre-configured my volume, but just in case you're wondering about it, you just right-click on it. The up color is green. The down color is red. No borders. The border line color is blue. These are just my preferred settings, and you can certainly hit commit and then commit again, and then shrink up that window. Shrink the window up. Shrink the window up. Okay. And now what I'm going to try to decide to do is put on some interesting different studies here in my top window. So one of the things that we like to look at is the RSI, which is relative strength indicator. I just put on the RSI. Now the RSI is, it doesn't really have a lot of sexy colors or elements to it. All you're looking to is showing the relative strength of a particular stock or security. So you can really make it fairly small. You don't need a lot of space for the RSI. So here I'm going to add another study. I'm going to add here's the Williams %R. And generally speaking, what this is so that if the RSI continues to trend up, that means that this trend is intact. Now, the interesting thing about this, little indication is that the RSI got very extreme down to the 20 level back in March. So it kind of gave us a very false, very, very rapid and false bottom. And then we can see that there was a divergence on almost all indicators. Every indicator was divergent as we hit the lows back in the end of March. And that's when the stimulus package kicked in. Now, if we look down here at the Williams %R indicator, set to the standard default level of 14, the RSI was also set to the standard default of 14. Now, you can play with these figures. So if you go and you configure them a little bit differently. So let's just say we bring this, I'm just going to go to the right one, study config. If we go to the RSI and we set it to, let's just say 9, okay? You're going to see it looks generally the same. It just becomes a little faster. So what I like to do is rather than use an indicator that's different from the majority of technical analysts, I just use the defaults. So the default works fine for me. Okay, so we set that to 14. All right, so there now I've just made that a little bit smaller. So now on this chart, I have configured my Williams percentage R set to the default level of 14. Now what you could see is every time it gets into the negative 80 area, the negative 80 area, okay, is usually an indication of a possible buy. So right here we had a buy, right? It was a little early. See that that is a little bit of a leading element right there on a triggered buy. And of course, we really didn't have many any other signals besides that. But now one more. I've configured those two. We've taken a look at the RSI and we've looked at the Williams percentage R. I'm going to save my settings. And look, notice what I've done. I have saved a kind of a format that MJD is my initials, and then I just add RSI, and then I'm going to do William percent R. Now, I'm just going to say William R because I don't think percent will allow us to save. So now I've saved that. Now I'm just going to go, I'm going to actually take out these sections. I'm going to delete this section, and then I'm going to go into some other studies that are actually overlaid on the chart itself. So we're going to go to chart area, and I'm going to go delete, remove area, chart area, remove area. I'm going to make this a little smaller. Okay. And then what I'm going to do is I am going to add another study. I'm going to add Bollinger Bands. Okay, so Bollinger Bands, I may have to remove my moving averages because the chart may become too crowded. So I'm going to leave the Bollinger Bands. I'm going to have the 10 and the 2 envelope, and I'm going to see how it looks. And it looks a little too crowded if I'm going to use Bollinger Bands with moving averages. So to me, that it makes the chart too cluttered. So what I do is I get rid of all my moving averages on this example. So I'm going to keep my Bollinger Bands, and I'm going to remove, and remove, commit. So now I have a clear use of the Bollinger Bands. Now, the thing with Bollinger Bands is they usually compress right before a major move. And you could see that it compressed right there before the start of the coronavirus pandemic sell-off. Right there, you could see that the Bollinger Bands were very, very tight, and then they express down and they ride the lower envelope down. They snap back to the midpoint, and then they ride the lower envelope down until that direction has exhausted itself. They swing back over the midpoint, and now obviously they go back into their consolidation and congestion. Now, here's interesting because we're not really in a tight band situation, and we're not really extended. So this is kind of not giving us any indication as to where we're going right now on the Bollinger Bands. Like we're not in any similar circumstances to where we were here or here in using Bollinger Bands. Okay, so here I'm just going to now use my methodology to save the settings. Okay, so I just saved that. Now I'm going to get rid of my bands, and I'm going to add a different indicator. So study config, I'm going to get rid of my bands, remove, and now I'm going to add envelopes. Okay, and envelopes are very similar to Bollinger Bands in some ways. If I actually add them. Okay, and now envelopes, you want to stretch the envelope so that the data, okay, the data fits in between the envelopes. So these settings are currently too tight. So let's just do like 10. And we're going to hit commit. Let's see how this works. Okay, that doesn't look like, I think the settings were a little bit too tight. I may have to play with my envelopes another day. Yeah, I'm not getting the reading that I want from the envelope. So if something's not playing out, you play with it another day and you put it on the back burner for the time being. I'm going to go to study config and I'm going to play with that another day. Another one that I'd like to play with, linear regression. All right, so linear regression lines, they snap onto your chart data. And if your chart data is very, very tight and narrow, they work very well. So right here, you can see the linear regression lines. If I zoom in, it works very well, right? So it snaps onto the data that's on your screen. So if your data is too, the amount of data is too wide, okay, they don't really serve as helpful. But here you can see that it kind of encapsulates the trend and shows that maybe when the trend is changing or reversing. So it shows you the general trend of the market and kind of cuts out all the noise. Very similar trend following tool to moving averages. So you could see here that clearly that the trend is generally up. And that's linear regression lines. All right, so I'm going to take my linear regression lines off. I'm not going to save the chart data on this or the other one. I just don't see any benefit for saving the configuration on these two. So I'm going to remove that. I'm going to hit commit. What I will do is I will load my settings from my MACD CCI, which I really, really like on my daily chart. Snap that to my daily, put it back into my screen. Actually, I'm gonna put it as a very vanilla. I already have it on my regular chart, but there's one more thing I wanted to do. Was I want to go to chart configure, and I'm going to look show title. Gonna get rid of the show title, and I think that's the main thing. Actually, let's see where title comes up. Show title. Doesn't allow, so let's go to study config. Show trades, show orders. Oh, this is something you really want to do is you want to make sure it shows your trades and shows your orders on the chart and choose the account that you want to show on there. So look, this is another thing that you definitely want to always be aware of, especially when you're looking at intraday charts. Show pre and post market. So it's under data config, show pre and post market. Just know how to get to that very quickly, because if we go to a 5-minute chart, right, then you can see the data looks very different. If I go to data config, show pre and post, commit, now the chart takes a totally different format and different look. So always remember, right click, data config, show pre and post market data, commit. Okay. Now what I usually do is I usually have one that shows pre and post market data. I use that up to a certain time of the day, and then I switch to taking that off. So I use the pre and post market data just for the morning gap trade, and then I take that pre and post market data once the market opens and just deal with the market data as we go on. And if anything, if I want to keep a level, I will put on a horizontal line and mark that level in my chart. All right, now the one thing I just right clicked on, you see toolbar, that adds this nice little toolbar here. Okay, and that toolbar is just a bunch of quick tools like trend lines. If you want to draw a trend line, you can easily draw a trend line by just grabbing on your toolbar and extend it out. Okay, so a lot of cool and interesting features. I'm going to be going through this toolbar next on one of my other sessions on advanced charting. I hope you guys found this interesting, and certainly join me for future upcoming sessions where we're going to continue to explore all the features of the Dash Trader Pro platform, and so that you can do everything that you want to do, and it can help you execute your trading plan perfectly. Hope you have a wonderful day, and I'll see you in one of the upcoming sessions. All the best.